and it has been impossible during
composite
cathode ray tube that you've been performing on.
You fool.
Mad fool, I can tell you. But, I mean, what are you like? Because you come across as very slick. Some accuse you of being very smarmy and very, very unctuous. But the real man is in the book. How do you respond to those criticisms, first of all?
The only difficulty I've had with that, Nicky, is putting the fact that I am told I am smarmy, vile, oleaginous, disgusting, putrid, and puke-making, and I have to put that together, the fact that when I play a theatre, it's full, and when I do a show, it gets ratings. So it's very confusing for a young lad to find himself in a 65-year-old body and still not have any answers. You know, at some stage in a career, you can easily turn into a target. It's very unlikely you'll turn into something further on than a target unless they'll really reassess you. I doubt that Jeremy Beadle will ever be seen as a leading novelist, even if he writes 20 bestsellers, because he's got a label stuck on him. So Monkhouse is oily, or slick, or glib. Glib is an interesting insult, isn't it? Mm-hmm. The fact that you have to be articulate is something you shouldn't do. And the other thing you shouldn't do in this country is do it for the money. I hope you're not doing this job for the money, Nicky. I'll walk straight out of here.
You mentioned as well that, you know, when you're writing for a comedian, you're very much, or you're writing for anyone, and you obviously do a lot of writing for yourself. You have to tailor the material for that personality. Once you wrote for Tony Hancock, and what did he do with your script?
He said it was, he graphically said that it was human orgia, and and that what we'd written it on was that paper which is normally used for the cleaning up of such, and he took it away and proved it. But to tell you more would only have you feeling rather giddy.
So what sort of material do you give yourself? Who is the person that you're writing for?
Nearly all the gags that I do now are... Jackie said the other day, my wife said the other day, she watched me work in cabaret and in Bristol to a great crowd. Mostly students, I think. They were wonderful. About 800 of them. Terrific audience. I did 2 nights. She went out and watched for the 2 nights. She does that occasionally. She said, you know, remember when we used to worry about comedians coming in and nicking your gags? I said, yeah, of course I did. She said, there's nothing there now that they can take because it's all to do with you. All the jokes are to do with your age, where you live, what you've done, your past. And it's interesting because so many of the jokes come out of pain, of things that hurt, that you then decide you can't do with that, you can't be bothered with a pain, so you wrap it up in a joke. Mm-hmm. I realise I've done that a great deal more in recent years than I used to. And I find that intriguing. I find it intriguing, for example, the fact that I'm at an age where the audience anticipates sexual exhaustion or impotence on a man, or young people can't imagine old people having sex, certainly not their parents. That the performer on stage has to make allowances for that situation. He's got to assume that I will say to an audience that my wife is 57 and I'm 65 and we still have sex because we want to have grandchildren. Well, that arises out of the truth, and I don't see a comedian going on stage who's 26 and pinching that joke.
Mm-hmm. Well, sexual impotence has never been your problem, as you say in the book. But let's have some music. Golden Years from the man who was the golden boy and gave us the golden shot, David Bowie.
Golden years, golden years.
You're listening to Into the Night on 1FM with me, Nicky Campbell. Bob Monkhouse with me this evening. I loved it when you were speaking there, Bob. The mic guy would swallow. You know,
gosh,
the mic
yes.
guy would swallow when you're speaking.
He was the first guy to spot that, and he did. It's in the book. He did a great thing. I mean, I can't describe it on the page. I try to get things on the page. I can't always do it. But Mike, having got me nailed down, used to get the material that he did as me, written by David Renwick, who writes One Foot in the Grave. Because he used to think that my material that I did myself was up to a certain standard, and he couldn't use a substandard writer to do the patter that he would do as me. I thought that was one of the loveliest compliments. And he got up and did a speech as me for 7 minutes and sat down slick with sweat at a variety club function and said, he said, I only had to be you for 7 minutes and you've got to keep it up for a sodding lifetime, he said. So I said, yeah, I guess so. But he got the hand movement first and the gulp.
The gulp. How many game shows have you done over the years? Must be mounting into 30s, 40s, something like that.
We eventually did a little contest when we launched $64,000 Question a couple of years ago in Geneva or somewhere. The press were there. And they held a contest saying they would give a bottle of champagne to whoever guessed closest to the number of actual game shows I'd done. So I went back.
How many was it?
27.
27. God, it's a hell of a lot over the years. Of course,
Yeah, it means there were a lot of failures, doesn't it?
goodness only knows I've been fascinated with game shows all my life, and when somebody asked me to actually do one myself, because you're a cabaret, you're a performer, you're a comedian, I thought, well, what better fun than actually being a contestant on one? I mean, it's great fun to do, but God, is it difficult?
Yeah.
But you have to be on the ball all the time. You have to know all the ramifications, and you seem so on top of it. And the fact that when you've left shows, I mean, when Max Bygraves took over from you on Family Fortunes, didn't he?
Family Fortunes, that's
wonderful performer, but it was very much
a great performer.
answer the question bzzz, when you hear this sound. It's a little bit like that, wasn't
But it wasn't his style. It's horses for courses in any bloody business, and certainly in show business. And I'm sure had Max's agent, Jock Jacobson, still been alive, he must have been spinning in his grave like a pinwheel. He would never let Max take over a show from me, a lesser personality, a lesser name, lesser attraction, and with the same set, and with the same property, and with the same rules, and clearly not with the same experience. But Max, I'm told, phoned Jimmy Tarbuck and said, I'm coming in on your game. Well, Jimmy said, don't, Max, unless you've got a brand new property and you've got it rehearsed until you know it so well you can do it in your sleep. But instead he just took the instruction to do it in his sleep, and that's all he remembered.
He's actually been, ironically, he's been very critical of your book, Max Bygraves.
Yes,
hasn't he? He said it's very squalid, and because you've got some revelations in it about love affair with Diane Dawes and
sexually explicit, he said it was, and disgusting and sleazy and foul. Quite what caused Max to go off like a firecracker, I don't know. He obviously occupies the high moral ground, and I'm sure his reasons for doing it were extremely proper, but I just can't imagine what they were. But he did me a huge favour. You might suspect that I slipped him £100 to criticise me. He must have sold another 10,000 books for me.
Is it entirely necessary to name names, though, when you're talking about love affairs in the past?
Nor would I if I thought it was going to hurt anyone who's alive. But if you examine it very carefully, I seem to have slept only with dead people. No, I've made the rule when I decided that if I'm going to tell about anybody, it's got to be that what they happen to do with me or for me or around me or near me had more to do with me and my story than it had to do with them and their story. In other words, where they'd impinged upon me, it had altered the course of my thinking.
But what about when it tarnishes a legend like Frankie Howerd, who tried to seduce you in it?